And we're kicking off with Raw, as main event Jey Uso opened the show as the newest member of the Raw roster, with the crowd firmly in the palm of his hand. Jey admitted that there's a lot of Raw superstars who don't want him on the show, and confirmed it was Cody Rhodes who pulled the strings to sign him to the Red brand before being confronted by Sami Zayn. Despite their issues, Zayn was surprisingly welcoming to Jey, adding that he's proud Jey broke away from the bloodline, while Uso admitted that betraying Zayn wasn't very Usy of him. Zayn mentioned that many people weren't going to be happy about Jey, one of them being Kevin Owens, who was conspicuous by his absence during the segment. It's clear that Owens has been increasingly more frustrated as of late, and it could be the arrival of Jey and Zayn's willingness to give him a chance that could lead to Owens and Zayn splitting as a tag team. In the ring, Zayn and Jey embraced, but just as Jey was walking off, he was confronted by Drew McIntyre, who has had his own issues with the bloodline. McIntyre, alongside Matt Riddle, were in a far less forgiving mood, but Sami played peacemaker, encouraging Drew and Riddle to give Raw's newest superstar a chance. It was also confirmed during Raw that with Jey signing with the Red brand, someone from Raw will be moving to SmackDown as part of a trade compensation between the two shows. In perhaps the biggest shock of the night though, Dominic Mysterio would reach out to Jey, offering him a spot in the Judgment Day, and for a moment, it looked like Jey was considering it. But what do you think of main event Jey Uso on Raw, and who do you see moving to SmackDown as part of the trade? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Whatever comes next, Jey Uso will be a fixture of Monday Night Raw, and though some on screen may take issue with that, those behind the scenes are very happy. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that WWE officials are optimistic about Jey's potential as a solo performer, independent of the Bloodline storyline. WWE went to great lengths to keep Jey's roster move a secret, and despite reports of Jey being backstage at the PPG Paints Arena for Payback, his name was omitted from internal documents. Jey's segment, which saw himself, Cody Rhodes, and Grayson Waller, was put together by WWE producer Sean Davari, but it had been rumored that WWE had a different idea in mind. Weeks ago, reports came out about a Jimmy Uso vs. Jey Uso match at Payback, possibly with Rikishi as the special guest referee, but some in WWE felt like it was too soon to have their first encounter. There was also discussion about potentially saving the match for WrestleMania 40, although some argued that waiting until April was too lengthy and the fans may lose interest before then. It was presumed that WWE intended to have multiple matches in the brother versus brother feud, so it remains to be seen if this aspect of the program has been abandoned with Jey's move to Raw. With that said, the two being on different brands does not necessarily rule out a Mania match, as they could have some interaction during the 2024 Royal Rumble match, setting up a showdown. What's your take on Jey as a singles competitor? Do you have the same optimism WWE has that he'll thrive? Sound off in the comments to let us know what you're thinking. It was back at WrestleMania 39 that Cody Rhodes lost to Roman Reigns in a shocking end to Night 2 of the biggest event of the year. Many were sure that Rhodes would finish the story on the grandest stage of them all and dethrone the tribal chief, and this week, Rhodes accidentally acknowledged the head of the bloodline. Taking to his Instagram story, Rhodes highlighted a video of Reigns' iconic "Acknowledge Me" catchphrase, which included Reigns at WrestleMania 39 ahead of their main event. This might have been unintentional on the American Nightmare's part, as he later deleted the story, but not before members of the WWE Universe were able to screenshot his mistake. Interestingly, this week's Raw also saw an interesting comment in relation to Rhodes, as on commentary, Michael Cole reminded fans that Cody Rhodes used to be an executive vice president. Cole said that Rhodes knows how to get things done, explaining how Cody was able to sign Jey Uso to Raw, and while the commentator didn't mention AEW by name, fans knew what Cole was referencing. Rhodes has said that losing the biggest match of his career unsurprisingly sucked, but said that it has given him the drive to get back up and work to get back in that spot one more time. Many suspect that Rhodes' loss was because WWE intends for him to win the big one at next year's WrestleMania 40, but what do you make of this situation? Let us know down in the comments. Payback 2023 also saw Seth Rollins retain the World Heavyweight Championship against Shinsuke Nakamura, who was infuriated by his loss in the show's main event. After Payback went off the air, Nakamura attacked Rollins from behind, and this attack incensed Seth, who challenged Nakamura to another match during this week's Raw. The Architect was even willing to put his title on the line to get another match with Nakamura, but the latter refused to wrestle Seth, though the pair did brawl on the stage. WWE officials and security came out to stop the fight, and so did Ricochet, setting up a match against Nakamura for later in the show. The match was unsurprisingly hard-hitting, and the fight would spill to the outside, with Ricochet sending Nakamura over the barricade to the Timekeeper's area. Nakamura would then decide to end the match early, hitting Ricochet with a steel chair in front of the one and only's fiancée Samantha Irvin, causing a DQ finish. In the ring, Nakamura placed Ricochet's head in the chair and was ready to hit a Kinshasa, but Seth Rollins appeared and made the save, causing another brawl between the two. Security broke up the brawl once again, but Rollins managed to take out Shinsuke with a suicide dive first. Nakamura quickly recovered and battered the champion's injured body against the steel steps, and for a moment, it appeared that Damian Priest was ready to cash in. That likely would have happened had Rhea Ripley not prevented him, but why did she stop him? Possibly because Rollins wasn't completely knocked out or helpless. Cash-ins have happened when stars have just competed in matches, others have been after huge attacks. This was in between those situations. Another reason for Rhea's caution may have been that Nakamura was at ringside, and the King of Strong Style has made it clear he intends to be the one to dethrone Rollins, and perhaps he would have prevented the cash-in. Nakamura wasn't eager to face Rollins in a match tonight, but it's likely a rematch will happen soon enough, and after reaching 100 days this week, Seth Rollins' days as World Heavyweight Champion may be numbered. Now, Payback 2023 proved to be quite the coronation for the Judgment Day, with every member of the group now holding championship gold. Payback saw Finn Balor and Damian Priest defeat Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a Pittsburgh Steel City fight to become the new undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions, putting the group in a great mood ahead of Raw. We have to bring attention to a sign we saw during the Judgment Day's entrance, with the fan pleading to Rhea Ripley that they are way dirtier than Dominic Mysterio. Raw's intro segment saw the Judgment Day flaunt their championships as the fans booed, with these boos being extra loud for Dominic, who managed to get through his words without too many issues. Balor congratulated Dirty Dom for the 1-year anniversary of joining the Judgment Day, thanked Rhea Ripley for being the voice of reason, and noted Priest for his accomplishments. Balor then turned his attention to JD McDonough, putting over his longtime friend for always having his back, and thanked the Irish Ace for helping Balor become a WWE Grand Slam champion. Ripley would praise Balor and Priest as they proved that the Judgment Day was a family at Payback, but said she wasn't happy about Jey Uso stealing headlines at the event after signing with Raw. The Eradicator went on to say that the Bloodline has fallen and the Judgment Day was now the most dominant faction, and given the gold, it's hard to disagree with Ripley's argument. McDonough then made his way out as Priest was left annoyed, but the Irish Ace lightened the mood with a gift, presenting Priest with a purple and black custom briefcase emblazoned with Senor Money in the Bank. The Judgment Day were impressed, but their celebration was cut short by Sami Zayn, who blamed Mysterio for his loss at Payback and challenged Dirty Dom to a match for later in the show. Instead, McDonough dared Zayn to fight him instead, and would go on to defeat the Canadian, as all signs point to JD McDonough being with the Judgment Day for a long time to come. For decades, many have tried to take Rey Mysterio's mask off of him, but for many, this feat of sheer disrespect has ended in nothing but failure. One name to have succeeded in separating Rey from his mask, though, is Dominic Mysterio, and WWE referenced this act very subtly on this week's Monday Night Raw. During a segment in the Judgment Day's base, a yellow Rey Mysterio mask could be seen in the background as Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley watched a match with Seth Rollins competing. This was the very same mask Rey had intended to wear at this year's Royal Rumble, but was attacked backstage and demasked by Dominic Mysterio, who would mockingly wear the mask later that night. It's interesting that WWE wanted to remind fans of Rey's issue with the faction, and Raw this week may have been a tease for things to come between Rey and the Judgment Day. Rey is the US champion, having won the title from Austin Theory last month on SmackDown, a show the Judgment Day can appear on thanks to their tag titles. The Hall of Famer was forced to switch brands because the faction has made his life miserable on Raw, and do you want to see the Rey Judgment Day begin again? Let us know in the comments. This week's Raw saw the Viking Raiders defeat Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle, a match that was made official last week after Ivar launched Kofi Kingston at the Glass Bros. This week's bout was a tornado tag match with no disqualifications, and it should come as no surprise that things were physical from the get-go. During the closing stages of the match, Ivar took out the Scottish Psychopath with a splash from the announce table, and later intended to put McIntyre through a table, though Riddle fought them off. Valhalla's distraction helped the Raiders take control once more, and when Kofi Kingston tried to interfere, his Trouble in Paradise would accidentally hit Riddle instead of his intended target. The Viking Raiders then cleared the ring before delivering the Ragnarok on Riddle to secure the win, and it was clear in the aftermath that McIntyre was frustrated and had a stare-down with Kingston. We have to give props to a cool Team 3D Dudley Boys reference when the Glass Bros said, "Get the tables," but these tables would ultimately be used against Riddle and McIntyre. The intense stare-down with Kingston seemingly confirms a McIntyre heel turn is coming, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Scottish Psychopath when he finally snaps on his allies. From one Scot to another, as Piper Niven wasn't on this week's Raw, as she was not medically cleared to compete, another example of the women's tag team titles apparently being cursed. At least Chelsea Green is playing her part well, losing to Raquel Rodriguez, but it'd be a real shame if yet another title change was forced due to a situation outside of WWE's booking. Raw was headlined by Gunther defending the Intercontinental title against Chad Gable, and it was right for this excellent bout to headline the show. Gable came exceptionally close to winning the title, but in the end, it was Gunther who'd emerge on top following a devastating sleeper suplex, powerbomb, and lariat combo. With this win, Gunther will break the record for the longest Intercontinental title reign of all time later this week, following 15 months of excellent in-ring work with a variety of opponents. This match also saw heartbreak for the Gable family, who watched on in tears as the Olympian fell to the might of Imperium's history-making, record-breaking leader. Before his ROH World TV title defense at All Out, Samoa Joe shoved MJF to the side, an act that many fans recognized was a nod to a 2016 segment when Joe was NXT champion. That backstage segment also saw Joe push MJF, then working as on-screen security, and on Twitter this week, MJF made it clear that, "I'm not the kid you shoved in Brooklyn, motherfucker." It certainly appears that Joe and MJF will do battle for either the AEW World title or the ROH World TV title, as MJF will seek to prove why Joe should regret shoving him to the side. Earlier this month, it was reported that WWE had quietly re-signed the AOP and that Paul Ellering had been part of the negotiation process to bring back the former Raw Tag Team Champions. Ellering was the on-screen manager for the AOP during their impressive NXT run, which also saw the pair win the brand's tag team titles, and now it seems he'll be a regular with them once again. PW Insider reports that Ellering was spotted in Orlando, Florida on September 4th, and amid reports of AOP's return, we seriously doubt that Ellering being in the area was sheer coincidence. The reported plan is for Ellering to return with AOP and NXT, with the group expected to be in Orlando this week, meaning the group could be back on TV as soon as tonight's episode of The Gold Brand. As we all know, CM Punk's time with AEW has come to an end, but of course this isn't the first time his tenure with the company has ended under controversial circumstances. After walking out of WWE in 2014, Punk was given his release on his wedding day, a sheer coincidence according to Vince McMahon, but could Punk wrestle again for WWE? Fightful Select reports that in December 2022, during Punk's first AEW suspension, Punk was open to leaving AEW and even encouraged the idea so he could make a WWE return. While Punk wanted this, there's not been any word on whether WWE were interested in such a thing, or if AEW were actually entertaining the idea of letting him go. The report adds that one rumored idea, which hasn't been confirmed by Punk or his allies, was for Punk to compete in this year's Men's Royal Rumble match, but he wouldn't be winning the match. Instead, Punk would work a WrestleMania feud with whoever eliminated him in the match, with Kevin Owens' name being thrown around as the one to work with the returning CM Punk. Punk's departure from AEW was a rocky one, but the whole situation would have probably played out a lot differently in WWE, with management firmer than what we saw in AEW. Speaking on his drive-thru podcast, Jim Cornette shared his 2 cents on the matter, claiming that AEW executive Mega Parek is, in his view, responsible for Punk's release. He said, Mega Parek's over there. She's been involved in this since the start because she was one of the people that burst into CM Punk's locker room along with the Buckaroos and their ilk and started the whole goddamn deal a year ago. She's been the one that was screwing up contracts because she's in charge of the AEW legal team, trying to throw stumbling blocks in the way of bringing Punk back with messing around with Ace Steel's employment and etc. She's the one who's been trying to collect evidence for her friends, the Buckaroos, all along. It's quite the claim that Parek is to blame for Punk's release and Ace Steel being fired last year, as opposed to Punk throwing the first punch at All Out and Ace Steel biting a man during the fight. Ex-wrestler Val Venis also commented on the situation, saying Tony Khan should have grown a pair and demand that the Elite and Punk turn their real-life issues into something that could make money on screen. Only time will tell if this brings CM Punk back to WWE, but with his AEW career over, the self-professed locker room leader certainly has enough free time on his hands. What's your take on CM Punk making a WWE return? Sound off in the comments to let us know what you're thinking. The Elite was hardly the only people CM Punk had an issue with in AEW, as it was reported last week, Punk refused to shake William Regal's hand when the British legend joined AEW, believing Regal was a Triple H stooge. In an update, Bryan Alvarez added that while this confrontation did happen, the way Regal spoke about it, it didn't seem like it was a big deal, though that didn't mean it wasn't a big deal to AEW. Regal's exit from AEW had nothing to do with Punk, but it may give WWE second thoughts about working with Punk again, as the Chicago-made star's issues may be far from over. At AEW All Out, CJ Perry made her debut for Tony Khan's promotion and would be part of a segment with her real-life husband Miro. Perry's debut comes after years of speculation as to whether she'd join the Bulgarian, but her future with the promotion remains uncertain. While speaking during the post-All Out media scrum, AEW President Tony Khan talked about CJ Perry's status, saying it's not a long-term guaranteed thing. Khan added that at least for the night, it was great for the former Lana to appear for AEW and felt like it was a great surprise for the fans in Chicago and those watching at home. Perry's debut was kept a big secret backstage and comes over 2 years after her release from WWE, and we'll have to see if she has any more appearances for AEW going forward. All Out also saw the in-ring return of Bryan Danielson, who defeated Ricky Starks in a strap match, and the American Dragon's first match since he fractured his forearm at Forbidden Door. After Danielson's retirement from 2016 to 2018, getting to see him compete in the ring is nothing short of a blessing, but his days in the ring may be numbered yet again. During the post-show media scrum, Danielson spoke about wanting to spend more time with his family, who had a somewhat mixed response to the bloody war he had with Starks in Chicago. While Danielson's 3-year-old son Buddy loved seeing his daddy in action, 6-year-old daughter Birdie was terrified and told her father that she hopes he'll be done wrestling when she's 7. Danielson has made plenty of money in wrestling and has spoken about stepping away from the ring in the past, and the decisions about his future will be one that only Bryan Danielson can make. And we're ending with Edge, who last month competed in his final match on his current WWE contract, and there's been a growing sentiment that he could soon be heading to AEW. Joining AEW would allow Edge the opportunity to reunite with his real-life best friend Christian Cage, but the holder of the TNT title isn't interested in answering questions about the Rated R superstar. During the media scrum, Cage was asked about Edge possibly joining AEW, and he made it clear that he'll only talk about himself or Luchasaurus, adding that Luchasaurus is his only friend. Christian Cage went on to reveal that he just inked a new deal with AEW. He said that Tony Khan inked him to a fat contract and he's worth every penny as well. Edge joining AEW would be a huge win for Tony Khan, but it won't be happening while Edge is still under contract, and don't expect any answers from Christian Cage at this time.